So Garth Jordan, not your typical CEO.
I'm not?
No.
Most CEOs, what is typical?
I would say that in the veterinary industry, at least, it hasn't been super common to see the CEO of AAHA giving his plenary in jeans or
Lemon.
Yes, or Lululemon.
Someone asked me, "What are you wearing?" And I said, "I'm wearing Lululemon on the red carpet, of course."
Of course.
So
I mean, you dressed up.
That is dressed up.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you are. It's not just that you're not wearing the suit with the tie.
The tie. The tie is very choky. Very choky.
Yeah, you're
very uptight.
You're also, your leadership style is also reflective of your laid back wardrobe.
Oh, not choky and uptight.
Not choky and uptight. That's
not
right.
choky and uptight leader.
Not choky.
Thank you.
You let your people do what they're good at, and you check in sometimes. Is how it feels.
I try.
I like that. I really I love that style because it gives people confidence that they have somebody helping to support them, but also the independence to do their jobs and not feel like they're being micromanaged.
That's very kind that you notice that. And, can I prelim my speech tomorrow in this podcast, even though no one would know that that's what I'm doing?
No one's going to hear it till after.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were just going to stop there and say no one's going to hear it.
Oh, yeah, we're done.
We're done. Garth, this is the worst podcast ever. So I was reading this article, and I shared it with you from the Harvard Business Review about why people love their jobs. Mm-hmm. And there were 3 things that kept coming out of this article for me. And one was that there's kind of trust in all dimensions, or all directions, I guess you might say, from leadership to the rest of the employees, and vice versa, from employees to leadership, and kind of in any way you might connect all of those folks. It's just trust, right? That's one big thing. The other one was, of course, people feel like they're part of a team. They're not a cog in a machine, right? Yeah. I think that's truly important. One way you feel like you're part of a team, trust me, I'm going to get to a point in a second. One way you feel like you're part of a team is what your contributions give to the team and to the organization. But the third one is, I think, kind of where you're going, and that is, I get to be an individual. Even so, it feels a little like contradictory, but I get to be myself while I'm part of the team. So, and the message in there was, I have skills, abilities, desires to contribute in the things that I'm passionate about. And if I can do that, I can be my best self while I'm contributing to a team. And when I read that, I actually realized, I hated the first 5 jobs I ever had. Mm. I absolutely despised them. And I thought there were certain reasons why I didn't like them. Like I had to wake up too early. Mm-hmm. When you're 22, that makes a big deal. Or I didn't make enough money, which is probably true. But there were many, many reasons that I thought I hated them. And when I read that article, way too late in life, 35 years, 40 years later, whatever, I realized, wait a minute, I didn't like my job because I didn't get to be my best individual self while I was contributing to a team that recognized what my contributions were. I couldn't see how I was contributing. And so therefore it was really hard to kind of build all this trust. Those 3 things all kind of compiled on each other. Yeah. So what you just said, just strikes home for me. A, not just because of the article, but B, as I reflect on my career, I've been in that position where I didn't like a job, or I didn't feel like I was getting to be my individual self. And how could you turn around and do that to anybody? Yeah. Makes no sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, thank goodness.
Thank goodness all my jobs sucked.
Thank goodness that you realized that by the time you came to be CEO.
Right.
Because I told one of the board members last night, this is the happiest I've ever been at a job. And I don't think I would have realized that because I didn't realize I was unhappy before. I thought that was just how it was at jobs.
I was the same way. So one example, I worked in an environmental chemistry lab. And so it was one of my first jobs. And I had to wake up at 3 a.m. to be in the lab at 4, from 4 to 1. I had very highly repetitive tasks. I basically prepped the same type of water sample every day for an entire year. And then what I thought was the worst part of the job is I worked 5 days on, 2 days off, 10 days on, 4 days off, 15 days on, 6 days off, and 15 days on at 3 a.m.
That's a lot.
That's really, really hard, especially for a 22-year-old who wants to have a nightlife, right?
Right.
And when I reflect on all of that, again, that's not why I didn't like my job. I thought this is just what people do.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, party's over.
There you go. I've played this game since I was 51. Now I'm 56, but I've played this game since I was 51 where someone says, how old are you? And I say, well, I'm closing in on 60 because I want them to look at me and say, dang, you look good. And now that I'm 56, I'm like, I ain't working so good anymore. They're like, yeah, I see that.
Yeah. I mean, there's really just no good way to approach those conversations, but
I think it's all, in attitude. When they say, how old are you? I'm like, well, I love Metallica and the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Right.
Yeah.
And I just don't tell them when I saw them first in concert. That's all.
Yeah. I like to say I'm a year younger than Star Wars.
That's a good one.
Yeah. My parents are pretty into Star Wars, so I watched that from
I'm a Star Wars geek.
Yeah.
I told you my Star Wars story. I don't have to tell you this podcast. Maybe that's another podcast.
Maybe.
How I ruined an original Star Wars tape trying to dub in a marriage proposal to my wife.
That might be the most Garth Jordan thing I could imagine.
Do you want me to tell you the story now, just for fun, since we're recording?
Yes, I do.
And you can decide whether you want to use this.
I mean, part of the reason I wanted to talk to you is because I wanted people to know that AAHA is run by real people.
Right.
So you're being real. Okay,
so I'll be real for a second. So I won't tell you about the divorce that got me to this point in time, but that's another story.
That's a whole other podcast.
That's actually a really good story, and I will absolutely share that one with the world. But I ran into my now wife, who I had known since childhood. And this was after my first wife, and we were divorced, obviously. And so we ran into each other, and we went and had some drinks together to talk about our exes, to really talk, smack about exes and just bond over hatred. Oh, yeah, because hatred is, strong bond. We never talked about them. So, of course, we hit it off just like we had when we were kids. And 3 months later, 2 months later, I was wanting to propose. She was a teacher, and she was off doing an expedition with her kids in the mountains for like a week. So during that week, I went and I bought the ring, and I did all the stuff. And then I'm thinking about, how do I want to propose? I want to make it kind of fun. And we're Star Wars geeks. So I took Empire. No, wait a minute. When does Yoda die? The third one, right? Yoda passes away in the third.
Spoiler alert.
Sorry. Yes. Sorry, guys. For those who haven't seen it. So anyway, so we're kind of.
Wait, was it the third one?
Second one. No, third one. Second one.
Dude, we're the worst Star Wars geeks ever.
You're supposed to know when Yoda dies.
We can't publish this.
I know.
We're going to get hate mail.
I know. Okay. Everyone, we actually know. We're just doing this.
We're just going to cut that part.
Dramatic fashion here. Okay. So I take the video, and I'm like, I know my wife will be watching this video because we're Star Wars. We love watching the trilogy, the original trilogy, right? So we decide to watch the trilogy, and I know she will always watch the scene when Yoda passes away because Yoda's her favorite character, etc. Right? And I say, okay, I can dub in over Yoda's death a video of me proposing. Okay? So yes, I ruined that videotape, but it will be ruined in the best way forever. It will be ingrained in VHS forever. And we will watch it forever because there will always be VHS tapes. So that's what I did. And I swear I did it right. And it was beautiful. And it was the most heartfelt proposal ever. And we get into the room and we're watching the tape. And I've got the ring, in the crevice of the couch. And we're waiting. And Yoda's death comes up. And all of a sudden, it's Cars for Everyone. I accidentally taped Oprah. Instead, when I was taping Oprah doing one of her Cars for Everyone. And you get a car, and you get a car, and the whole audience is going crazy. I'm like, where's my proposal? And my wife looks at me, and is like, what happened to our VHS tape? So then I told her this entire story that I'm telling you now. I told her this entire story, and I ended with the proposal, and I gave her the ring, and she just looks at me. She's like, yes. and that was pretty much it.
She's been doing that ever since then.
Right.
Oh God, that's a great story. I mean, it wasn't a car.
It was a fantastic failure.
Yeah.
Right?
A failure, but you got married.
We got married, and we've been married for 22 years. We've known each other for 44 years.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So it's really amazing.
It's a fantastic failure.
It is. Yeah, it's a failure, but also a really cute story. Like if it had gone well, it would be an okay story.
Right. Yeah, that was cool. You
really?
Proposed in the middle, and but you taped over Star Wars, Garth. Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, that's still bad.
Yeah. It's still bad.
But this way, at least you were foiled by the universe. So
right.
The
universe said, too. Never ever try to tape over Yoda.
Happen the way you think it's going to. So Garth, I brought you here to talk about veterinary medicine.
Oh, is that what we're here for? Okay.
But I've enjoyed these stories. Yeah. I like getting to know you better. And I do feel like that is a model that we're seeing more of in veterinary medicine, is leadership starting to be more accessible. I worked for clinics where the owner was the owner, and you weren't going to question decisions, and it wasn't going to be a committee about anything. Mm-hmm. It was one person making the decisions, and it really wasn't open for debate. If there was a debate, it wasn't going to go anywhere. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's not to say that's a bad thing. For some people, that works really well. It did not work well for me. I did not like it. Mm-hmm. I like being treated like I have a voice, even if it's not the loudest voice. Mm-hmm. And you gave me a microphone, so thanks.
No taking that back.
Nope, taking it back. It's mine now. But I do think that's a model we're starting to see a little bit more of, and you have shown it at AAHA that you want to really explore what servant leadership looks like. Mm-hmm. You have skip level meetings with teams that don't involve our bosses, so that we can talk to you about what's going on in our own teams and feel like we could be a little more honest about it. But I appreciate that approach so much, and I think there's a lot that the industry in general can do within vet clinics to have that same type of structure that they don't. And we don't think about sometimes vet clinics being organizations. We think about them, right. We call them families, people say they're like families, but they're organizations, they're workplaces, and that structure is there even if it's a tiny staff.
Right.
And I just wonder, I know we're doing a lot of initiatives at AAHA where we talk about culture and workplace, psychological safety and stuff like that. And it's all part of that. But right. What do you think that small or medium-sized vet clinics that think of themselves as more of a work family than an organization like AAHA, what can they learn from what larger companies spend a lot of time and resources trying to figure out?
That's an interesting question. So if I was to say something negative about families, it's that everyone has their own dysfunction anyway.
Yeah.
So just saying we're a family doesn't solve any potential current or future dysfunctional problems. Right.
And many people in vet med know this on a personal level.
Right. And I've been in small companies of 5 to 12 to 18 people myself. And I've seen it. I've been part of it. I've probably contributed to it. In fact, I'll say I know I've contributed to it, right? It's so that dysfunction happens, and whether you like it or not. So I'm a big believer. If there's one thing I tell people, I truly believe that and these are not my original words. I can't remember where I heard them, so I can't give the person attribution. But but I'm a big believer that the culture you create is the culture you tolerate. So if you think about it that way, what it really means is the culture, who you are as an organization, requires active and purposeful design and contribution to that culture. So the best way I see it happening, small or large, I go back to what you and I were kind of talking about earlier, and that is you got to let individuals truly be who they are and contribute in the ways that motivate them. And because all of us have things that we love to do. Mm-hmm. And if they can contribute in the ways that motivate them and see how those contributions make a difference, that is just a huge hurdle. And I go back to a couple of things. I think about my daughters are 20 and 22. So, they're the age of, a lot of the current or, almost workforce now, right? And their experience in school, number one, was completely different than mine. They were in group projects all of the time. I was never in group projects, ever, throughout all of my schooling.
I hated group projects.
Right.
I don't know what that says about me.
Right. No. That's okay. Right. It's not whether you loved or hated it. Mm-hmm. It's that they're used to having a voice in the project. So you're building that.
Yeah.
They're used to having a voice in the project. So if you think about how schools are working today, maybe not all schools, but many of them, they're contributing. They want to point to contribute. And it's our job, as the individuals who are in organizations, whether we're running them or not, is to think about that there are differences in diversity. Is not just diversity in race and sexual orientation, et cetera. It's also diversity in how we were brought up in our education. Mm-hmm. And it's to me, that's something that we've got to be thinking about and actively designing around and helping people find that path towards contribution. So whether you're a 5-person, 15-person, or 500-person organization, I think that's your duty.
Yeah. And diversity makes you stronger, right? So
in all dimensions of the word. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to wrap up now. But
okay.
Before I let you go, the theme of Connexity, where we are right now, is create a better world. Right. And you've already spoken on what that means to you, but can you give us maybe a 1 or 2 sentence summary of what a better world in veterinary medicine looks like to you?
Well, I kind of spoke about it a little bit today, which your audience didn't hear, but I believe, as I've experienced veterinary medicine, that we can become a lot more connected as a community. And that creates empathy for each other, for our customers. There's plenty of empathy for the pets, I think, but for each other and the connectedness we make, whether we make that through our educational practices, whether we make it through coming to conferences, there's a connectedness that is, I think, I won't say 100% missing, but we can grow it and we can foster it. And this ecosystem needs our veterinarians, our vet techs, and our teams to be connected with each other and to learn from each other.
But connectedness, though, you really, one word sums it up, though, is more connected or connectedness. And that, I think that's really special because we do feel kind of fragmented right now, and putting efforts towards that so that we can at least be intentional about keeping the gaps from broadening.
The word intentional, purposeful, et cetera, you've got to actively seek out being connected. Mm-hmm. And it's what I would say is it takes time, but it pays off in the long run and saves you time.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you, Garth.
Yeah, thank you.